Hi, everybody. My name is John DePietro.
And I'm Bob Zagami with the Camper Report Show.
And on this Camp Report show, Bob, I am going to introduce our audience to Kathy Belge, who runs one of the top 25 podcasts in the entire world, according to our friends, Mark and Julie Bennett. She has a podcast called SoloWomenRV.com. It's interesting.
Very interesting. And I've got an interview with Joel Holland. Been trying to get him back, but he's been so busy acquiring companies and traveling the world. I pinned him down for an interview this week.
Great. Harvest host.
Harvest host, right?
Great. Super.
That's right. Yeah, I just assumed everybody in the world knows him.
But anyway, we get all of our news, including stories from Joel at Harvest Host. Where do we get it, Bob?
From Rick Kessler at RV Business Magazine and Ben Quiggle at Woodall's Campground Magazine.
So we'll be back with all the news of the week, plus those great features right here
on the Camper Report Show.
Stay with us, everyone. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the news segment here on the Camper Report Show. My name is John DePietro. His name is Bob Zagami. Bob, there's a lot of interesting news this week, including some good news that our friends at Lippert are doing. We say they're doing it in Elkhart, but really they're encouraging it throughout the country. And it's encouraging volunteerism and giving back to the communities that they serve. They've got quite a program that they're working on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a hallmark of Lippert under the direction of Jason Lippert, the CEO. Volunteerism is critical in all of their plans, made available for all of their people. And just this past week, which happened to be National Volunteer Week, a group of Lippert employees got together at the Elkhart Fairgrounds and packaged up 5,400 boxes of supplies and goodies. They had 110,000 items. They had an assembly line set up at the fairgrounds with people going back and forth.
Bob, I got to stop you here. You say a group of Lippert people got together. According to what I read, 1,500 of them got together at that fairgrounds. And we've been to that fairgrounds. They probably were in that big room there, the big room where we've been many times. But 1,500 people, that really is a commitment.
Well, you could say it was a big group, or you could say it was a small group. But quite honestly, for some of the projects that Lippert undertakes, 1,500 is a small group. They get, when you think of the number of people, they're always publishing things from certain plants. So they start right off at the plant level, and then they do stuff at the corporate level.
Yep.
It's just an amazing program that they have now. The packages that they were developing, putting together this week, are going to the Boys and Girls Club of Elkhart, St. Joseph Counties, La Casa de Amistad, the Food Bank of Northern Indiana, and 7 schools in Elkhart and St. Joseph Counties. And that was their project for national volunteer work, and they're just fantastic at it.
And a worthy one as well.
They set an example in the Elkhart area for other volunteers and what they do. I know Thor had a big problem, Thor had a very big event project with Earth Day that they've had. So yeah, there's other companies that follow the example. And the RV industry overall, whether you're talking about manufacturers or suppliers or our local dealers and campgrounds, always get very active in their local communities also. So it's industry plus, that's for sure.
And moving on to another industry topic, and it is an important topic and one that we're going to be talking about for years and years on this show, is something that appeared in, was it Automotive Week or Auto Week?
Automotive News, yeah.
Automotive News, about the RV industry trying to figure out what the whole deal is with electrification, the infrastructure for electric vehicles. And we have talked about it for at least 2 years on this show about, is electrification feasible for RVs? But as we know from our friends at Winnebago, as well as Airstream, they've already come up with EVs. But now they're trying to figure out the whole thing about the charging structure and everything else. Talk about some of these other factors that they're looking into.
Well, the government, this administration has set a goal of zero emission vehicles to make up half of all new vehicle sales by 2030. and many people think that, number one, they can't reach that goal. Number two, they're not going to be in mainstream as much as they would like. And three, more importantly, the infrastructure. Because every time they talk about electric vehicles, they have to talk about the infrastructure. And it's time consuming, it's a complicated process that requires a lot of coordination and investment from multiple sectors in the industry itself.
Yep.
And yes, it's imminent, but there's a special section in this week's automotive news directly related to this whole EV thing. Now, my issue hasn't come yet, so it'll probably be here tomorrow. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's an insert, and I get automotive news because it's a precursor to a lot of things that will show up in the RV industry later on. So this is critical for our dealers and our manufacturers. But they talk in this special, they talk about developing a nationwide charging network, how to do it, the charging footprint, where are they? The data that they need to decide where are the locations going to be. GM's got a program of EV chargers are a boom for retailers. Many retailers, we've already seen it from Subway and Cracker Barrel, I think, are going to put chargers in.
Well, you know what they talk about, and it's all well and good, but here's what they have to be aware of. They put the chargers in at dealerships, okay, whether it's Ford or General Motors or whatever, but then they park cars that aren't electric vehicles in front of those because they're putting them there before they take them in for service. So it defeats the whole purpose to have it there, because so many times you see people that are EV owners say, I went to that place because it was listed on one of the national apps, and the car was, the power station was blocked by a non-electric vehicle. Now, one other thing about this, and it's so important that they be looking at this seriously. Many owners of electric vehicles, myself being one of them, are already concerned that the infrastructure that's out there right now can't even deal with the existing cars that are already been sold, let alone with these huge numbers that are expected to be. Now, how does that impact the RV industry? Well, with the travel trailers, which make up 80% of the RV sales, they have to be towed by something. And if they're going to be towed by a Rivian truck or a Ford
Lightning,
Ford Lightning, or a Tesla truck, that type of thing.
Yep.
They've got to know how they're going to be able to charge. And in many cases, RV charging is let's just put it politely, it's quite an ordeal, because they can't pull into a spot the way they would with a car, because you got a 20 or 30 or 35-foot trailer behind you. You're going to block the road. So all those things have to be looked into. And it's nice to see.
Let me add one more thing, because in this week's automotive news, and this one, I'm going to guess you didn't think of this either. And I'm guessing that a lot of people haven't thought of this. Here's the headline. Are EVs too heavy for aging parking garages? They start to list, that parking garage that cratered in New York City last week was almost 100 years old, and that was full of regular cars. Some of these electric vehicles weigh 9,000 pounds. The Hummer weighs 9,000 pounds. A Tesla Model S, 5,000 pounds. When you got conventional ones at 2,000, 3,000. So are we going to get to a point where you're not going to be allowed to take your electric vehicle into a parking garage? If I own a parking garage in Boston or Miami, do I want the liability of filling that up with electric cars when the parking garages were built for Model T Fords?
Right.
Never thought of that, but not, to add something else to the misery. That really is something.
Stay with us on that, because we're going to be following that issue on a weekly, if not a monthly basis.
Right.
So if you want to go RVing, but you don't want to buy an electric vehicle, but you want to get out there, you can rent one. You know what? You can rent it from dealers. You can rent it from, peer-to-peer owners. And we see today that there's a new peer-to-peer company that has been on the market for about a year. It's called RVing. Now, where that name came from, I didn't read the press release to find out, but they say that they're trying to make it more affordable for people to rent an RV and make it more beneficial for RV owners to put their RV into their lender's pool. So give us that.
It's typical of the other way. It's in the same thing. You talk about it being different. Well, it's the way that they're pricing it. So it is in the sense that for the owners, they make more money and the renters pay less money. They claim, but their fee is only 10%, and it's based only on the nightly rental. So some of these other companies are getting upwards of 20%. So that could be true there. I don't know how that has the renter paying less, because typically the owner decides what the charge will be. Now, the other thing is they say best user experience by working very closely with seasoned RV rental fleet owners. So that tells me that they're going to go after dealers and rental companies, and maybe they'll have other individuals.
I wish them well.
Well, and it says free for owners, so it does not charge any fee to list or rent the RV.
But then
right. And then in protection, their insurance does cover liability and physical damage. And then at the end, they give back. So 10% of the net company revenue is donated to a charity. But one of the things that I picked up on right at the last paragraph, it says, RVing is planning to launch an upcoming crowdfunding campaign to expand awareness about the company's platform among RV owners, renters, and potential investors. So you're going into a new business, but you're going to have a crowdfunding campaign to fund it, or you're looking for investors to grow it. I don't ever get excited when a business person tells me they're going to run a GoFundMe campaign and let everybody else pay for their business. So I don't know.
The interesting thing is whenever there is a new company that enters a rental car market or rental anything market, they always say they're going to be cheaper than the competition. And then what happens is they start off cheap, they get some momentum, and then the competition buys them. And then those people are happy because they made a fortune and really didn't have to do it for a lot of years. I mean, a lot of those low-priced car rental companies are all owned by the big ones. And in fact, in many times you can get a Hertz or an Avis car cheaper than those discount cars. But whatever. So that's a little bit of what's happening in the world of RVing this week. We get all of our information from RV Business in Woodall's, and we got a great show lined up, right, Bob?
Very good. Very good show. Every show is a very good show, John.
Stay with us, everyone, because this is what, Bob? Here's your
The Camper Report Show.
Mike here from RV Blogger. Don't waste hundreds of dollars on an external GPS for your RV. All you need to do is download the RV Life app right onto your phone. This app is so cool. It has RV GPS built right into it. So you can load all the specific measurements and weights for your RV. It'll give you directions safe for your RV to follow. And by the way, if you have RV Trip Wizard, directions for your trips upload into this GPS automatically.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Camper Report Show, and I'm really happy to have a good friend back on the show, Joel Holland, CEO of Harvest Host. And Joel, it seems like every time I bring you on either of our shows, you have either a new announcement or you've just acquired somebody else. So which one do you want to talk about today? Give it a little history for those people who may not know you. But we tend to think everybody knows about Harvest Host and Boondock is Welcome, but give a little history and then tell me what we should talk about.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Bob. It's always a pleasure. And 5 years ago when I bought Harvest Hosts, you were the first kind of gracious person in the industry to reach out and say, "Hey, I'd love to give you some guidance and get you on the show." So it's been fun over 5 years, kind of working with you. So much has changed in a very good way. And so my wife and I started out as RVers. We dove in head first. This is now going on 8 years ago. RV'd all the lower 48 states. Completely fell in love with the industry, and that's how we found Harvest Hosts. And I always say it was one of those products, I liked it so much I bought it. I reached out to the owners and said, this is just a marvelous concept. I'd love to try to take this to more people and more host locations. And so that over 5 years, we've grown Harvest Hosts substantially. We now have over 52 full-time employees in 26 states, fully remote company, 250,000 members, and over 8,000 locations. And that's, up from 600 when I bought it and 3,000 members. So it's been a good growth of the business. And along the way, we've put a lot of time and resources into improving the technology. So the app, the route planning features, the website, and of course, we've invested probably the most in host recruiting. So we have 10 full-time employees who are just constantly going out and trying to find new hosts to make the program really special. And, to their credit, they're adding about 200 a month, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I can no longer actually visit all the hosts, which is, bittersweet. I'm glad we're growing so fast, but I'll never see them all, which is sad. But I'm trying, and you can see I'm actually in the Harvest Hosts fifth wheel. It's our Solitude that we've wrapped, fully wrapped in Harvest Host branding on the outside. So if you see us driving down the highway, you can't miss us. We're currently in Charlottesville, Virginia. So I'm posted up and doing this interview over Starlink. So hopefully the quality's okay. But yeah, that was 5 years ago. We bought Harvest Hosts, and then shortly thereafter bought RV Golf Club and kind of looped in 300 golf courses. We've expanded that number substantially. In 2021, we purchased Boondockers Welcome, which was the Canadian company with 3,000 personal property and community locations. And most recently, our big announcement this year, earlier this year, was that we purchased Brit Stops, which is in the United Kingdom, and essentially it's Harvest Hosts for the UK. So we have 1,200 pubs and farm, breweries and vineyards all over England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. So it's pretty special. Pretty special product.
Now you're international. See?
That's right. So, we love this whole concept of connecting RVers with small businesses. I just am personally very passionate about that idea. And because of that, we've gotten pretty good at it. We've gotten pretty good at expanding it. And so that's why we decided, if it works in the United States, I bet we could take this, expertise internationally. And
I bet you can. Yeah. There's the European market, the RV market, and as they call it, the caravan market is significant over there with great products, great shows, and people that want to go out. It's really, you might say it's a burgeoning industry. It's not as old as our industry here in the United States, but certainly growing very rapidly.
Yep, that's right. Yep, and so that's where we are today. And then on the new products, we did just also launch in May, or sorry, it's not even May yet. We launched this a couple weeks ago in April. Campers Card, and so Campers Card is a product we've been working on for years to try to give RVers interesting, high quality campgrounds with benefits. So discounts, we call them VIP perks, things like early check-in, late checkout, a welcome amenity, kind of like a hotel program, right? If you're a Marriott Bonvoy member, you get to a level of status, you feel special. Right. We're trying to do that for campgrounds because most of our members, well, actually all of them, they use campgrounds more than Harvest Hosts, of course, right?
Well, I think that was brilliant, because through the years, as we've talked over, there were some people that thought your concept was competing with campgrounds, which it never was. So explain why it wasn't, and then why this thing is taking off as well as it is.
Yes, so that's right, and I've said this from the beginning, and it rings true. Harvest Host does not compete with campgrounds. We're competing with Walmart parking lots and rest stops. Basically, we're telling people there's no reason that you should be parking overnight at a Cracker Barrel or Walmart unless you want to. But in my opinion, staying at a winery or a brewery or a farm is a much more pleasurable experience than staying under a bright light at a Walmart with God knows who else. And that's the thing. So our locations are safe and they're scenic. And so they're still boondocking. And so our average member uses Harvest Host 4 days a year, and then they stay an additional 30 to 60 days in traditional campgrounds. So clearly the campground category is the big meat of the equation. And I fall in the same category. We stay mainly in campgrounds, love campgrounds. And we're excited to finally have a program now where we can support campgrounds. And so Campers Card, the concept, it's completely free for campgrounds. We never charge them to be in the program. And the idea is if you have extra spaces to fill, let us tell our members. We have 250,000 Harvest Host members, and we have 800,000 RV owners who subscribe to our various podcasts and newsletters, magazines. So we've got the eyeballs, and for free, we'll tell them where to go. So it's good for the campgrounds, and it's good for the Campers Card members. So we're excited to finally launch this program. And we launched it. It's been only a couple weeks, and we've already got over 3,000 members. So it's going well.
Yeah, and there's good advertising, good exposure. The industry is really jumping on board this because it's a win-win for the campground, obviously a win-win for your company, but it's a great win for consumers because it gives them another option, all under your umbrella per se, and they're going to go camping, and we're going to sell more RVs, so there's going to be more campers. So you put a nice touch to the outdoor hospitality industry in your own way. But what a lot of people don't see is the technology behind it. Because I know in your previous life, you had a technology company. So you're a technologist, along with being an entrepreneur, you've got the technology background to do that. And that's been a key to your success on the back end, correct?
That's absolutely right. That's right. And so, I think the three things that make this work for me, understanding technology, so understanding how to build a good product, being a willing sucker entrepreneur, so willing to take a couple hits on the chin now and then being an RVer. So I actually I eat the dog food, right? I'm the biggest user of the product. So when we build something or buy something, it's because I personally find value in it, and I think that makes it easier to run a business because I fully appreciate what we're doing. It's not just a money-making scheme.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I appreciate about you and admire is a lot of people think that when you're successful, you have to be a workaholic and you abandon your family and you abandon all your life's pleasures just to build companies. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. And for good people, it doesn't work that way. And I would reference Jason Lippert and the growth of Lippert Industries and the culture that he has built at the company and the way he takes care of his employees and recognizes his employees. You do the same thing. So when you go out with Mary and Waverly and you take the family and you're there. So yeah, it's a business, but guess what? You're having great fun and you're enjoying your family. So talk about the quality of life and why that's important. Because if it's important to your employees, you have a good company, a lot more people use it.
Yes, I think there's a right and a wrong way to run a business. And I think that personally, I think the right way is when there's a good work-life balance. And I know it's possible because I've done it twice, right? Two different companies where it was in industries that are passion driven. So it's a fun product, building things that people really enjoy and makes people happier. And we've got balance. So here I am on an RV trip right now with Waverly and my daughter and my wife, and we're having a great time and fitting work in the mornings and the evenings. But I'm not tied down to a desk. And our company of 52 employees, they're all remote, and some of them are full-time RVers. Some of them are stay-at-home parents. And ultimately, we all agree on the goals we're trying to accomplish, and then we say, "You're all adults, figure it out." Right? Work when it suits you. If you need to go to your child's recital in the middle of the day, great, go do it. And then if you get the job done, who cares?
That's how I ran my companies when I was in the document imaging industry. I give them a sales quota, and you want to go golfing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, go golfing because I know you're going to come home at night and do it. If the kid gets sick, bring him into the office.
Right.
Sit them in the condo, let them play around. It was not unusual for me to walk into my office and have somebody's child sitting in my chair playing with my desk and my computer, which I love, which I
Great.
love. You know, and the
Yeah.
beauty too is the timing, and timing doesn't dictate success. Your business plan dictates success. But with COVID hitting the way that it did, companies finally realized that people can do remote. I mean, we had remote imaging systems 20 years ago, but I couldn't convince large corporations to use them and let their people stay at home and work. So they're realizing that having that quality of life, that balance between work and relaxation and recreation, then all of your companies fit right into that. And your potential is truly unlimited because people realize how much fun they can have, still work, still achieve success, but guess what? Take care of the family and have a better quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, I say this all the time, but I think we're living in the future right now. You know, the fact that we can be having this conversation, and I'm in the Shenandoah Valley, Blue Ridge Mountains. There's not even cell phone service here, and yet I've got this, satellite uplink. It's incredible. So I'm getting the same thing done here that I'd be getting done in an office. The difference is I'm happier. I'm literally watching my daughter running around out in the field. I mean, that's delightful. So it makes work a lot happier. It makes my interactions a lot more pleasant. Yeah, we're living in the future. It's pretty cool.
It is. It really is. All right. Our guest this afternoon has been Joel Holland, CEO of Harvest Host. Joel, it's always a pleasure having you come back on the show and giving us updates. So we'll do it more often, and we'll get you on our other show pretty soon to talk to those fans. So that will be it for today. We'll wrap this up, and thank you very much, and go back to playing with Waverly outside.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Camp Report Show. My name is John Petro, and we have a very special guest. Her name is Kathy Belge, just like Belgium without the M. Kathy, welcome to the Camp Report Show.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, the reason I have Kathy on, folks, is because she and her podcast, and that is called Kathy Solo Women RV, right?
Yep.
Was named one of the top 25 podcasts about RVing, not just in the Northwest or the Northeast or the Southwest, but in the entire world, because in the podcasting world, we have no borders. But Kathy is showing her local color right now with those mountains in back. And Kathy, that's your RV behind you. Tell us where you home base from and give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. Thank you. My home base is Portland, Oregon. I did grow up on the East Coast, but I've been out here in Portland almost 30 years now. And that's my rig behind me. It's a 2000 Dodge American Cruiser camper van. And it is, that's the Three Sisters Wilderness behind me. Those are the peaks. If people can see those peaks, that's the Three Sisters out Bend way, towards Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon. Okay. So at this time of the year, is there still snow on them?
Oh, yeah. There'll be snow on those all year round. This picture was probably taken in maybe in August.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's funny because out west you have mountains. Out east we have hills.
Well, I used to think they were mountains till I moved out west.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So give us your background. What did you do? Because you've only been RVing for not a long time. What did you do before that? What was your career like, and how'd you get into RVing?
That's well, I've had a long and winding career, but I've always enjoyed traveling. I've always enjoyed road tripping. I've always enjoyed camping. And then, you get to a certain age and you no longer want to sleep on the ground. And I'd always had this fantasy of
You mean
RVing.
camping and tenting?
Yeah, I mean, tempting. Yeah. Yeah. I've been a lifelong camper. So I just, I was always going to one of those people that was always going to the RV shows and checking them out. And eventually, the thing that got me into to actually like pull the trigger and get an RV was I was working a job. I was working for a little company, you may have heard of it, called Airbnb.
Yep.
And yeah, I was actually one of the early early employees there. So after we reached working there for 5 years, they gave us a sabbatical. And all my friends were and colleagues were going off to Europe and Asia and all this stuff. And I decided that was my invitation to finally pull the trigger, buy an RV, and take a road trip across the US West. So that's what I did. That happened in 2018.
Okay.
2018 is when I bought my RV. So not that long ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that one of the reasons you started the podcast is that you were looking for information about people in the same boat as you. Shouldn't say same boat, in the same RV as you, and you didn't see anything about single women traveling alone, RVers. So you said, well, there is going to be one, and it's going to be me.
Yeah. I actually I have a degree in journalism, and I have a background in writing. I was a freelance writer for many years, so I know how to interview people. And I thought, heck, I can do this. So there's a lot of solo women who are RVing, and there's some great YouTube channels that are out there that are solo women RVers. But I didn't really find a podcast. And don't get me wrong, I listen to a lot of the other RV podcasts. I get a lot out of them, but I also wanted one that kind of spoke directly to what I was experiencing as a solo woman out there.
And your topics are a wide variety of topics. Talk about some of them, because it's not just about how to change a flat when you're stuck on an interstate highway at midnight in 0-degree weather. A wide variety of topics. Talk about some of those.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of think about what are things that I was concerned about, or what are people asking me about. So, for example, a lot of people want to pursue this more of a full-time-ish. So I have a lot of information about working on the road and how to just different kinds of opportunities to make money, jobs, whatnot, that you can do to support yourself in this this lifestyle, I guess you would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I talk about a lot. I bring guests on. That's one of the things that I do. Is it's a guest show primarily. Every once in a while I'll do a solo show, but I like to bring people on and interview them and hear their stories. So that's one of the other things I do, is I just bring women on sometimes just to tell their story, how they got started, maybe how being a solo woman RVer has changed their life in some way. And I've had some pretty remarkable stories on there. Recently, I had a woman who was agoraphobic, so afraid to go anywhere. And she kind of overcame that and is now RVing. And I've had, people who have like an empty nester, a mom who was an empty nester, and just, now it's time to hit the road and go travel. So just, I love stories, and I like to hear how other people do it. And that's one of the things that I always talk about. There's no one way to do this. If you want to go off and boondock and that's your thing, or if you want to RV park it, that's great. Like, if you want to drive and travel all over the country, yay, good for you. Or if you just want to explore your own area, that's great too.
Now, Kathy, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
As far as the time that you've been traveling, what's been, well, I'll ask you a two-part question. Your biggest thrill and your biggest fear that you either encountered or you didn't encounter.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll talk about the fear one first.
Okay.
So before I head out, I had all these fears. The fears were things like breaking down and, scary men, coming up and messing with you,
Yep.
that kind of thing. But it turns out the thing that was my scariest thing and continues to be now is driving in heavy winds and getting blown around.
Oh, yeah.
So that's not something that you hear about. That's not something people I think about when they think, oh, you're going off as a solo woman. They're thinking about, all these scary things that could happen to you, and they're not thinking about the actual, like, what could happen while you're driving.
Yep.
So that's been my scariest thing, and I don't drive now when it's super windy.
Pull over. And that's the beauty of the RV, is that you find an exit or you find a rest area or whatever the case. And so just the other day, we're taping this in mid-April, and just the other day I took our RV out of storage and drove it for the first time since November, when we put it into heavy winds. And I had to go over a bridge right near the area when I was heading home. And it almost took me over another lane. And then I realized, wait a minute, I know how to drive in the wind. But sometimes the smartest thing to do is get off the road. And, unless you're going to an emergency or to have an appointment that you can't change. And wouldn't you agree that that's one of the beauties of RVing, is that the schedule that you follow is Kathy's schedule?
Exactly. Yes. And I love that you can just pivot on a dime and say, you're going somewhere, and then, no, I think I'm going to go over here instead.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you can relate to this. One day we were, Kathy is from New York and we're in Massachusetts. So we're talking about Syracuse, New York, where my daughter went to college. And we were heading out there one day for something. And then she called and said, wait a minute, I'm not going to be around this weekend. I'm going to somewhere else. So don't come. So we just happened to be near Interstate 87, which is the Northway. So we just, instead of continuing on I-90, we went down 87 and went to Fordham University for a football game. And that night we stayed at Mohegan Sun. But again, let me ask you this question. I would think that maybe 10 years ago, or maybe even as recently as 5 years ago, you didn't see women on the road. You didn't see solo women on the road as much as they are right now. I'm wondering if COVID had any impact on that, where I hate to use that word, all these political words, but made women see that I don't have to stay home. I can hit the road. And, our friends at Girl Camper, Janine and her gang, have said that a lot of the women that are in their group, their spouse doesn't feel like camping, so they hit the road on their own. You must see more and more now, and maybe there's more because of the people that have listened to your podcast to do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That was the reason why.
Question.
So your question is there a difference between 10 years ago? I mean, I've only been really solo traveling for 5 years, so I can't really speak to that. You probably know better than I do.
Yep.
But I have heard, and I don't have the stats to back it up, but that solo women are the fastest growing group of RVers.
Yep. I think you're right. You're right with that.
And I know for myself personally, like, it took me a while to just realize, oh, I can do this myself. I don't need a partner. I don't need to, somebody to come with me. It is something I can do by myself. And, as someone who, I feel like I'm kind of a progressive, liberated person, that was actually a thought that I had. Might be, even surprising to me, but that it is something that that I at some point, before I got into it, was kind of feeling, and I think it's some of those fears. And you asked about some of the fears. One of my other fears is getting lost and breaking down, and those have all happened to me. And you know what? I've gotten through them.
Get over it.
Once you realize, once it happens and you figure it out, it's like, oh, okay, I can handle these things.
Yeah. Kathy, would you agree with me that one of the unwritten serendipities, that's a hell of a phrase, right? One of the unwritten serendipities of RVing is that you meet the nicest people on the road, whether it's at the gas station or whether it's at the campground or whether it's at the rest area, right?
Yeah, I haven't had any of those, so-called scary experiences that I thought I was going to encounter with creepy people. People are nice. People help out. I've met great people camping, whether in a campground or, like you said, just traveling.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I think with traveling solo, you're more open to meeting
absolutely.
people.
You do. I totally agree with that, because many times you see couples that you talk to and you say, well, did you meet? But well, no, we just, we went to dinner, we had a fire, and this, but you never know who the person is next to you. Sometimes that's good, but there are some very interesting characters that you meet at, in the RV industry, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
How about your podcast? How can people subscribe to it? And tell us the address, and we'll put it down below through the magic of video.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's the Solo Women RV podcast, and they can find it wherever they listen to podcasts. It's on Google and whatnot. It's not on YouTube, but it is on all the podcast platforms. I also have a blog, so the solowomenrv.com. The
not
podcast,
the solo woman, just
not the
solo woman. Women, plural.
Women, solo women. Yeah, that's plural. Solo plural.
Solo Women RV or Solo Women? Give me
solowomenrv.com.
Okay, good, perfect. We'll put that down there.
Yeah.
So you said that this season you're staying put and going to be hosting up in the Northwest, and but you also said that, hey, maybe in the fall I'll head out east for full time.
Yeah, so this is going to be in the past I've volunteered as a campground host at Oregon State Parks, and I've done that 3 years in a row now, like a month at a time. We have gorgeous state parks out here in Oregon, and it's a nice way for me to kind of kick off my season every year volunteering. But this year I decided that I was going to actually apply for a position, full-time campground hosting. And I'm going to be in Oregon. We have this gorgeous mountain called Mount Hood, and it's full of lakes and whatnot. So I will be full-time hosting up there at a Forest Service campground on one of the beautiful lakes up on Mount Hood.
Great. And people can, you'll be letting people know exactly where you are on your podcast, right? And your website.
Well, I'm not going to share my exact location.
No. But I mean, roughly in that. So if people are, bump into you during time, they'll know that they heard about it here. Kathy, we want to thank you so much for taking time from your busy day. We should tell our audience that Kathy's in Mountain Time. I'm in Eastern Time. We were back and forth. Is it 2:00 your time? Is it 2:00 our time? Et cetera, et cetera. But the beauty of it is through the wonders of Zoom and electronic media, we still got to do this great interview with you, and want to thank you and wish you well, and let everybody know that she is Kathy Belch. Her podcast and website is solowomenrv.com. It has a host of valuable information to it. It's one of the top 25 podcasts in the world. And if you write to her, tell her that you heard about it right here on the Camper Report Show. Thanks again, Kathy.
Thanks so much, John.